What up, everybody? It's Double G for the Fight Game Podcast After Dark.
After Dark.
Live on the F4W online YouTube channel. This is the normal time that John and I record.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's anything different for us, but because we're trying to go live on this channel, once a month or so, this is the time and this is what we're doing. So for the sickos out there watching live, we appreciate you.
Yeah, with that word, man.
The sickos is going to be a thing. That's what you're going to call all of your diehards.
You and Tony Khan are trying to make it a thing. That's it. No one's catching on.
He made it a thing, and I'm trying to utilize it in other ways. But so John and I are here. We are going to do our top 5 here in a bit. We always start off our show with our thumbs up and thumbs down. But actually, before we even get to that, what's going on? We haven't done a live stream on this channel in like probably over a year. I don't even remember when's the last time we did it.
Me either, but it's been a long time. But now we're back, and we're gonna try to do these, every few weeks or so, maybe every week, depending on how things go. But I think it's be cool for our fans who listen, and some people have been like, "Oh, it's back behind a paywall. I go listen to your show," but now they can listen to the show every couple of weeks. So
yeah,
or subscribe. Please do.
Yeah, and all of those things.
Yeah,
all of those things. All right, so I guess the one thing I want to point out is, we're going to do our top 5, and you and I vastly disagreed on Clash at the Castle. That is going to be in our top 5. But I want to kind of tease this one because we don't just disagree on this subject, but we're going to talk about the finish to the Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest match. We like vehemently disagree in what we believe in here. So I'm going to tease that one out. So before we get to that, we will do our thumbs up, thumbs down, and the voice of our little intro here is of one Keela Cash from the Fight Game Media Network.
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
All right, I've been going first of late, so I want to give it to you. I want to let you go first here. Who was your thumbs up for the week?
My thumbs up for the week was actually Damian Priest. I really enjoyed the promo with him and Seth Rollins on Monday Night Raw. I wasn't expecting Seth Rollins back. I may have missed the news. I was busy at work. I usually didn't keep up with what was going on, and
it was a surprise to me too.
Yeah, so that was cool to see him back. I thought he'd be back a little later, maybe closer to SummerSlam. The first part was very standard stuff. Seth Rollins doing all his catchphrases, everything. And when him and Priest came, I liked the dialogue between each other. I like that Priest, he's a fighting guy. He wants to, prove himself as champion. And of course, Seth was the champion, 2 champions before, because he cashed in on Drew. After Drew beat Seth at WrestleMania. And I really liked that. I liked the story. They're both, because of what happened at Clash of the Castle with Damian Priest and his leg injury, Seth Rollins coming back from a leg injury. I think all that's going to play into the match. But when Damian challenged Seth Rollins for Money in the Bank, that was a pretty cool reaction to the crowd. Like, it felt like a big match, and I'm really looking for. That's probably the biggest match I'm looking forward to announced so far. I really want to see what they're going to do. I think Damian Priest is definitely going over in that matchup, and I can see maybe some shenanigans at Judgment Day, not because Damian Priest wants it, is because they want to try to help out their leader, but he's wanted to prove himself. So I think it's going to move on to his full babyface turn, start planting those seeds even more going forward. So I really enjoy that for that Raw segment.
I loved Seth. I felt like kind of missed this guy. He brought some star power back to that show. Jey Uso's been the top baby face for a little while. He is still kind of growing through those ranks, but Seth is a made guy. That's his show. And I thought that it just felt like, okay, now we're kind of getting ready for SummerSlam here. I have been more critical than most about the booking from post WrestleMania time frame until now. So part of the reason is because you didn't have a lot of your top guys. Roman's going to take time off and you're saving him for something pretty big. I don't know if Seth was going to take time off or not, but he was beat up and to me, he was the MVP of that whole WrestleMania scenario because he was the glue keeping that thing together. So it was great to see him back. I'm sure in due time I'll get annoyed by him quickly, but his star power was felt on Monday. But here's what I want to ask you about the Damian Priest thing. So Seth comes back, giant star, gets that superstar reaction. Crowd is fired up. He's obviously a babyface. Drew's character was like this underdog champion, like this, I have to prove that I am a deserving champion, which I thought was an interesting thing because he has not turned babyface yet.
Mm-hmm.
And he has been the champion now for several months. So that angle for him to basically say, I am not worthy of you. He didn't say it in that way, but that was kind of the sentiment. Like, you're the big star and I need to kind of fill your shoes. I thought that was an interesting way to do it. I think what Drew does, or I keep calling him Drew, what Damian does have is he has natural babyface charisma. He's just a likable dude that I would go hang out and watch sports at the sports bar and have a Jack and Coke with Damian Priest. Like, that's the kind of guy he is. And so I was like, yeah, I'm into it because I really like him. But is that how we're supposed to see both of these characters, as Seth, the returning star, and Damian Priest as the champion, seemingly still below him in the pecking order?
I think Damian still, his character feels like he has something to prove. Yeah, he cashed in at WrestleMania, but that's the stipulation, is that he won. He could do that, and he did it. But you could tell since then, he's always pushing the Judgment Day back from interfering. He's not planning things out with them. He's trying to keep peace and keep it all organized while Rhea Ripley's gone. But
constantly throwing Carlito that side eye when Carlito busts the joke out.
Yes, he's trying to do all that, but he also wants to prove himself as champion. And then the fact that due to Seth's, status in wrestling business and, being the champion, just before Drew was, and, he didn't beat Seth really ever. So, and Seth beat him a long time ago. So he has something to prove. And I think it's okay for a champion to do that with people. It could be like someone that, in the NBA, they won the finals like a different team, but they didn't play like the top team, the top player of the top team, of one of the top teams. So they want to prove themselves against the best. So it could be something like that. So I like it. It feels like a really big match. And this W's on a roll with a lot of stuff right now. So I'm really enjoying it.
All right. For me, I'm going to go with someone who I'm giving credit to for being brave and just cutting promos in English when English is not their first language. That is Mina Shirakawa.
Oh my goodness.
I really love this storyline. It is, I'm a sucker for the love triangle. Beverly Hills 90210 did 2 love triangles. So I'm a sucker for the love triangle.
Ugh.
And she has been like, we watch someone like, our former Majesty Kazuchika Okada. Now he's stuck doing Attitude Era catchphrases, right? That is what they're doing with him. And she could do the same thing. Like, she could literally do the same thing. But instead, she's trying to cut full promos in English. She's trying to juice up this storyline of, who's it going to be? Is it going to be me or is it going to be Tony? You got to pick, Mariah. You can't sit here on the fence, Missy. And I thought she delivered that storyline really well. You know who screwed that whole thing up? Was Tony Schiavone. They're doing this thing where Saraya comes in and she interferes and Tony Storm throws her butt through the table and she's splayed out. And so on the ramp are Mariah and Mina, and they're like scared, like they're supposed to show that they're kind of scared, like what's going on, like our poor Tony. And what does Tony Schiavone say? He goes, "How dare she?" As if like she's cheating on Tony Storm. I don't know what or I can't believe what she did or something. All he had to say was, "Is she choosing Mina? Like, did she make her choice? Like, what's going on here?" And he screwed it up like he always does. It's so bad. But yeah, I'm a big fan of hers.
My favorite Tony Schiavone line in that whole segment was when Alan and Jay came out and joined Saraya and Cameron in the attack of these ladies, and she came from the side, and Tony Schiavone goes, "Where'd she come from?" "I was hoping, Taz." But she's like, "To your left, you moron. That's where she came from."
What'd you think of the crimped hair? That was a thing for a lot of young women back in our day in high school, the crimped look with the hair.
Unlike you, I did not like this segment.
I didn't like the segment necessarily. I didn't like the whole thing.
I don't think
I like
Mina's
work.
She's such a cartoon character. I know her English is obviously English not her first language.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so over the top. The crowd was just sitting there, and they kind of chuckled here and there, but I don't think anyone cares. I'm curious to see what the ratings are. I don't know how this is going to do. If people are just going to dip out, or they see 3 attractive women, they're going to stick around. I don't know, but
I mean, that's kind of tell you a little bit about that audience if they don't stick around. Like, it's kind of interesting because women enjoy the women segments as well. So if dudes slipped out because I don't know, not enough Hurricane Ranas or something, I would be very frustrated with that.
But overall, it was pretty boring, I thought, and uninteresting. A love triangle is great if they do it right. I just think they're referencing stuff that happened in Japan that most of these people didn't see. When you say Stardom, it's like they act like everyone should know what Stardom is, and they have majority of people have no clue what that is. Maybe if 200,000 of those 600,000 people are watching might, but not. It's just, I don't know. I wasn't a fan, but I'm glad you found something to enjoy.
Well, I don't need to see the full storyline of Mina and Mariah. I don't need to even know it. I kind of relate it to when I started watching New Japan pretty closely. Like I was trying to watch as many of the big shows as I could. I didn't need to go and do the whole, like, I need to find every reference of the Bullet Club to understand what the Bullet Club was. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I kind of want to dig in more, but I didn't need Kevin Kelly to go, here's the history of the Bullet Club for every show. I sort of see it the same way here. You can see the chemistry between Mariah and Tony, and you can see the chemistry between Mina and Mariah, and you can see the disdain for Tony and Mina, and they're going to have a match. And it's almost like, does the winner get Mariah's love? Is that what we're doing here? Like, is that going to help her choose, which one of the women is her closest person? And then you have the whole specter of, is Mariah going to win the Owen? And is she going to face Tony at Wembley? So there's that layer of what they're doing as well. So I think they're doing a really good job with it so far.
If their acting was a little better instead of being so over the top and cheesy, that's probably why I can't connect with it. But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
All right. What about your thumbs down?
My thumbs down was on Dynamite this week. The tease of MJF and Will Ospreay in the ring together. Not a fan of that right now. Just, I would hold that off. Now, granted, MJF should be doing other things, more important things.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a match you kind of want to hold off for later. I know they're not going to do it now. But what do you mean tease it? I would keep them apart, be like, and let the fans guess. Well, when those two guys going to get in the ring? When they going to do something? It's just so early on. I was not a fan of it. And
it looks to me like they're doing that match sooner than later, though.
Why would Ospreay come out and help? He wants to help Daniel Garcia. Why? The guy that wants to challenge him for his international title, where it's called. Like, I want to help this guy out. There's a lot of weird things happen on Dynamite. And, I'm not shocked because it's such a crazy environment back there and people don't know what's going on from one week to the other. But I thought, man, Tony, you have that match. I would keep it off for a while. I wouldn't do it soon. I would try to do it.
It looks like they're doing it at Wembley.
That's going to be the match.
I mean, I don't think Ospreay's winning the title this time. Do you?
I don't know.
I mean, we'll have the full preview.
We had
of the show next week, but
I think he's more popular than Swerve at this point. You might want to go that way. You might not want to hold off too long, but we'll see.
Because I would agree with you, and I don't think I would do this match now either. But I think the problem, because Dave and Brian were talking about this on Wrestling Observer Radio, and I have thought this as well, which is the biggest match AEW can do right now with the wrestlers and the roster that they have is Will Ospreay challenging MJF for the world title. MJF doesn't have the world title right now. So if you wanted to do that, you would have to have him beat Swerve, and then Will would have to win the Owen, and then you would get there. But it doesn't look like that's happening unless Will is the wild card and we get some funky Dynamite match with MJF. So based on what they're doing, it looks like they're going to do that match without the title and, without kind of that journey for Will to finally win that title this year. So I would have probably, if you weren't going to do Will winning the title at Wembley this year, I would have definitely held that match off until next year. But at the same time, here are the pressures that Tony Khan has, which is he's trying to figure out the way to trend ratings up. Does that mean putting MJF and Will Ospreay in a segment together? Does it mean having the Frenemies tag team next week, which WWE used to do all the time with like Rock and Austin and those guys? Is that the way to bump these ratings up? Because they're kind of at the, they're at the end of the negotiation, or at least very close to it with WBD. So there's that aspect of it, which doesn't really have to do with anything I'm thinking about when you're booking to this big pay-per-view. So yeah, I have no idea what the reason is. It didn't, like, if they do Will Ospreay and MJF at Wembley, it kind of comes out of left field because there wasn't any setup for it. So and then we can talk about this now, but Hechicero is a fine wrestler.
Hechicero, great.
I made the joke in the Discord that Brian Cage starts off this promo and Hechicero doesn't even speak English, and I was like, man, Hechicero's promo was better for the U.S. audience than Brian Cage's was. And he spoke Spanish.
You're in trouble when Brian Cage is your promo guy.
Well, okay, even better. They do this segment to create this match for, I think it's Collision, where Will Ospreay's chilling, and Brian Cage is supposed to come at him like the angriest man in the universe. And I would have done another take. Like, I don't know what emotion Brian Cage was getting across. Like angry. Constipation, like,
I don't know,
something. Like, it wasn't like I wanted to beat your ass. That's not what it was.
I just never seen a promotion's biggest star come back from a serious injury and is moving down the card. Like, what's next after Hechicero? After Roosh made him look like a 2 cents.
Well, that's some of the politics of this, right? Which is, I mean, you would think, if you give MJF and Roosh another 5 to 8 minutes, it's put on pay-per-view instead. But I guess because of the politics, and these are politics that Tony created.
It's just a bad match to do, which I talked about last week. I said Roosh is going to eat up MJF.
Okay, but he didn't eat him up as much as you thought he was going to eat him up.
100%. He kicked his ass. What's he like?
It was way more 50-50. It was way more 50-50.
No way. That's 50-50. man. And then Samoa Joe, Scott Steiner is doing the math on this one. You know, that was not 50-50. That was like 80-20. He got his ass
I didn't think it was 80-20. It was like 60-40, 50-50. I think my expectation was Roosh is going to eat him up and MJF's going to have to fight back. Like, that was my expectation.
Mhm.
But I think as we got towards the middle and the end of that match, MJF got a decent amount before he won.
Oh man, that match was not good, and not good for MJF. You know, Roosh is very selfish. He's always has been, and now they're gonna put him with Don Callis. Like, that's gonna help him out. Anything as he's helped anyone else out.
Well, I mean, you're making fun of the guy's promos, so you got to have someone do the promos.
If he was coming in new, maybe this would work, but he's been there for a couple years now. All he does is lose matches. Putting in Don Callis is not going to do anything for him. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I did not like that match. And now they're setting up a match with Hechicero, which, like, the underground of underground fans really like. What's going to happen next? He's going to start working Angelico. That's going to be the next big program. You know, like, I don't know. MJF needs to do something. I think they may have rushed him coming back. Maybe he didn't. And yeah, maybe he might have been ready, but maybe they need to bring him back now, maybe till after Forbidden Door. Or
yeah, I mean, they didn't have a plan, but that pay-per-view is also
true in his hometown.
They needed him to sell tickets, I think, and they needed him to, be the local draw or whatever.
They could have done something where he returns. He's going to make his big return, and he's going to make a big announcement, or he's back, or something. Like, it was already selling pretty well before they announced MJF. So I don't think MJF was that big of a difference. Like, this match is just made this week. So what's that? 2 weeks from now, the match, less than 2 weeks, that match is happening. So we didn't know he was going to have a match until this past Wednesday. So I would have had him come back, done that promo he did at Double or Nothing, and did it at this Forbidden Door pay-per-view, you know. Maybe at the end of the show, maybe you do like one of those things like, oh man, he's supposed to be, he might be here, kind of like the Punk thing in Chicago. But yeah, I was excited for him to come back finally, and he's back, and he's not doing anything that's really exciting right now.
Yeah, he hasn't, and maybe that is where they're getting at with kind of pushing the thing with Ospreay sooner than later, because maybe they feel the same way. My thumbs down. Originally, I was going to give it to Chad Gable just in storyline, because this dude has been very entertaining in his storyline. Yeah. He announces at Clash of the Castle, or at least on the promo tour before Clash of the Castle, that he's re-signed with WWE. And so then he has the match with Sami Zayn at the pay-per-view. It was good. He lost. Mm-hmm. They're forwarding storylines, but he lost. Then on Raw, he faces Braun Strowman, and I was like, did this guy make someone mad? Because you don't face Braun Strowman unless you're about to get destroyed. And then he gets dropped by Otis and friends in the Academy, so he's more down on his luck. And then he nearly gets killed with the Wyatt Sicks. So in storyline, Chad Gable, who I very much enjoy, did not have the best last few days. But instead, my thumbs down is going to be for the creative decisions behind bringing back the Wyatt Sicks. Here's something that we've all talked about. This thing is going to sell merch, 100%. Yes. They're going to sell tons of merch with this. They're going to make a lot of money. But my worry is you're going to make a lot of money, and there's going to be a cost of making that money, depending on who has to face these characters. We've talked about the Bray Wyatt thing and the Fiend thing over the years of this show. Mm-hmm. And at certain points, we were like, okay, maybe this can work. And then at other points, we were like, oh my God, they're just killing. Like, the creative is just all over the top and kind of hard to understand. And this time, the person that I'm rooting for here is obviously Bray Wyatt's brother. I really am rooting for Taylor to, if you watch that Bray Wyatt documentary, like you really feel for that guy and you root for that guy. And he's been in WWE for a long time. So I am rooting for him to succeed in this role, in this character. But the only thing, as I was watching that whole presentation, and the production was great. They this is not, I may disagree with the creative. I may disagree with the idea, but this wasn't like the Shockmaster coming out or anything. This was well produced, right? I just think of the definition of insanity. Like, how many chances is this thing going to get before we give up on it? Mm-hmm. And who gets laid waste next? And how many more Seth Rollins and Fiend moments are we going to have? How many more Mountain Dew matches are we going to have that don't work? Because there is a cost in that, right? Like, you're going to make money off of this angle like they did the last time before Bray got ill. They got a sponsorship for this match and they put Bray in it with LA Knight. I don't think he did any favors for LA Knight, but that was essentially his role. And so I'm giving a proactive thumbs down to just the idea behind bringing this thing back, while at the same time hoping for Taylor's sake that it works, because I want to see that guy do something. I want to see him live out his dream. Like, he probably thought that he was pretty close a couple different times, and this may be the way. But from what I've seen with the Fiend and Bray and the Wyatt family of the last several years, I just can't imagine this thing works very well. And then you kind of got to give up, I guess, if it doesn't work this time.
Yeah, I mean, production was great. I'm not sure if I like the idea they took out the whole production team and bloody up people. There's blood all over the wall of some.
What were we supposed to think about Chad Gable? Were we supposed to think he actually died?
No, I think he just got attacked. I don't think he was murdered. But there was that one person,
that blood dripping down the side of his face.
That happens in wrestling.
I was looking to see if I could physically see him breathe, and he was doing a great job of like trying not to breathe because he didn't.
I'll
move.
Get back to all that Chad Gable stuff, and part of this includes that. But it's been a while since we've had this supernatural stuff at WWE, and I've liked the creative of what Paul Levesque has been doing, but how's it going to fit now? But I need to see it. I need to give it a good 6 months to find out like who they're going to be programmed with. Are they baby faces? Are they heels? Like, I don't know. I know the fan base is rooting for this, right? Because of, what happened to Bray and his untimely death, and they want his brother to succeed and the other succeed.
And there's a long-term storytelling piece of this where they're dropping clues and they're playing off of the clues.
Yeah.
And I think there's like somebody there's like some Dexter Loomis stuff where he's talking about, Chad Gable something or other, like making a reference to the Chad Gable's old character. So they're tying in these like little things, which I think the fan base also really enjoys because it makes the people who want to follow as closely as possible. You get rewarded for paying attention.
Yeah, I'll wait and see on this whole Bray Wyatt Sicks thing or Wyatt Sicks thing. I thought most of the costumes look cool. I don't know how Dexter Loomis is going to work in that one. I think they're going to take the headpiece off, I assume, right? But I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out when it happens. Like I said, 6 months. We should grade it in 6 months from now. And see at the end of the year. Let's look at the end of the year, and we'll get our official grade if we can remember to do that by then. But back to Chad Gable stuff. Him re-signing the WWE, I think, of course, was a smart move for him.
Yep.
He's in the biggest run of his career. He's the most over he's ever been in his career. I didn't mind the booking of Braun Strowman beating Chad Gable because it was one of those things where a clever booker could do is where a guy gets beat, but immediately something happens where you forget that he lost, and it's all about the post-match situation, right? Braun Strowman gets a win, he gets a win. That's great, right? People love Braun Strowman. He gets a win. Awesome. But now you have that stuff with Chad Gable and Otis and the Alpha Academy. And, you know, now that people are into that, they forgot about he lost. All they want is Otis to do something to this guy. They just want Otis to do something to this guy, and he shoves him. Now, I saw a comment that Dave said he was really upset that they blew this off, but they didn't blow it off. It was a total layer thing. It wasn't even the blow off yet. There's still so much to come with this, right? And I think part of it is the Alpha Academy, Otis, Maxine, Tozawa leaving. Remember in the locker room? Gable's like, where are you guys going? And they're like, we had enough. We're gone, right? They're taking off. So when they take off, they leave the building, supposedly, right? And then at the end of the night, the Wyatt Sicks shows up. They attack a bunch of people, one being Chad Gable. And now Gable, who's been manipulating Otis and Maxine and Tozawa, he's gonna use this to manipulate him. You know, that he was seriously injured. They weren't there to help their family member. They always talk about Alpha Academy as a family. So now they're going to be guilty, especially probably Otis more, that, you know, they left when they could have helped Chad Gable. So we're going to see more of that. You know, Chad Gable to me is like my favorite thing to watch on Raw.
It's awesome.
Like I look forward to his segments, not just his matches, just his character. He's amazing. He is great, and I'm so glad he's getting this opportunity, and he deserves to get a raise. And
he's Kurt Angle with a Napoleon complex.
Yeah, and he's awesome, and he finally has. I mean, he had, you know, Paul Levesque, you know, obviously saw great talent in him. They put him in the Team Alpha, right? American Alpha, excuse me,
with Jason Jordan.
Yeah, so you always saw that talent there, and now he's been so experienced now. To be on his own, now it's time to feature him, and I think it's great. So,
another time, seeing his booking, I would have thought, oh, Vince McMahon just gave up on this guy. But giving Triple H the benefit of the doubt, it was just sort of like the idea of like Chad Gable's character just going through like the worst 4 days of his life, and then as somebody said in the chat, didn't Gable get shot? Like I think we were supposed to think like somehow he got shot like by a gun.
I didn't see a bullet hole. I did see a production assistant or something with like a blood splatter over their head. So I don't know that. Yeah, so I don't know, but it wasn't Gable. No, he was not shot. They're not going to kill off Chad Gable.
Yeah, I hope not.
No,
I think the guys been doing great work.
But there's a lot more to come with the Alpha Academy and Chad Gable.
I will admit that I sort of felt like that moment, that layer in this storyline came off as pretty anticlimactic. I think everything's been really good until that moment, and that turn or that frustration from Otis. It didn't like I didn't feel like they hit a home run with it.
Well, if you remember what they've been doing week after week, it's Otis has got in front of Chad Gable, gave him a look, stand in front of between Gable and Maxine, not getting physical once. He got physical, but it was just a shove down. That's all it was, right? People are like, yes, finally he did something, and that was it. And now people are like, come on, do we want to just
but I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel like finally you did something. I took it as, oh, like they kind of put some finality on this or something. And it didn't, like, I didn't get that feeling. That's the feeling that I wanted, was exactly what you just said. And it just felt a little anticlimactic. Now, some people, watching us may think differently, but a lot of people I talked to, they were like, oh, that was it. That's weird. I expected it to be bigger or whatever. So, yeah. I mean,
when I first saw the angle on Raw, I just knew, okay, they're slowly building to finally Otis is going to lose it and destroy, Chad and get really big revenge on him and stuff. So I like it so far. I didn't think I would really be liking this kind of storyline, but Chad Gable has been so good. Otis has been so good. Maxine and Tozawa. They're there. Actually, Maxine, beyond her over the top facials, I thought what she did at Clash of the Castle was freaking off. The timing of everything, the production, the producing of that segment to where, you know, the camera angle is right on where Chad Gable falls and he clips Maxine. Then they had another camera angle where in the foreground it's Gable and Otis. They're having their face off. In the background is Maxine, and Otis is about to beat up Chad Gable, and Maxine gets on her feet. She falls. Oh my god, that was so awesome! It's just I
was like,
that was the best thing she's ever done in wrestling.
I was like, oh man, he really clipped her on that one. Like, that's how good it looked.
Her little flop getting up was fantastic. That was her best work. That was her Oscar performance in professional wrestling. And then, you know, Otis doing the Miss Elizabeth thing, picking her up and carrying her to the back. All that stuff was good, you know. So I'm into it. I still want Gable to finally win the Intercontinental Championship sometime soon, hopefully. But we'll see what happens with the good old Sammy in the near future here.
All right, for those who don't normally listen to us, the next segment is basically our top 5 topics that we want to talk about, which we call the top 5.
Top 5, top 5, top 5.
All right, so let's start off with something from AEW Dynamite, which is Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay. There was finally a little oomph in their step, I thought, in their promo battle. They added a little bit of like personal frustration with each other, where Swerve knew how to get under Will's skin, and that may end up being Will's kryptonite is getting under his skin. He mentioned Will's significant other. He mentioned the stepchild, and it really pissed Will off. And so that may be the trigger. The Swerve has finally found, you know, the cool bruvs trigger. And I thought Will was awesome in the promo segment. He's become a much better promo than I would have ever thought, based on from when we saw him back in the day. Sometimes he still talks a little too fast for me. Like, I'm trying to figure out exactly where he's going, but he's just been on a roll. I don't know if I wonder if he's like, you know, I don't know how people would teach themselves how to do better promos these days. I don't know if AEW has a promo class or anything, but you know, over the years, he's just so much improved at the promo stuff. And then, you know, Swerve I'm still trying to figure out how he could get back to that coolness that he had, but I did think that was probably his best work in a while. So finally, Swerve and Will Ospreay definitely feels like there's a conflict, there's a struggle there in this main event, and it feels like, that this may be a fight instead of just a match.
Yeah, they added some heat to this a little bit. I like their face-to-face confrontation. I wish there was someone in there to conduct the interview between these two guys, just them in the ring with mics. The only part I did not like is the end, because early on in the promo, Swerve pushes Will Ospreay's button by mentioning his stepson, and Will's like, you know, don't ever mention my son's name, you know, in your mouth ever again, or I'll knock you out, right? And then at the end, Ospreay leaves, his music plays, he leaves the ring. Swerve says, cut off his music. He wants to tell Ospreay something. He makes another mention about Ospreay's kid, and Ospreay gets in the ring, and they just give forehead to forehead, like a playground fight that never happens.
Double dog dared him.
Yeah, and he did nothing. I thought it made him look bad, you know, like not the tough guy that he tries to come off as. This is where, I mean, that was a planned segment, right? That was a planned spot, right? In this promo. They wanted that. Okay, get the security guards out there, separate these guys, so it doesn't look like Will did nothing when he had the chance, when he said he was going to do something and he didn't do it. He didn't come through with this promise. You know, I just did not like that part of it. And then on top of that, later on in the evening, after this confrontation, after this face-to-face, you know, you're talking to my kid, I'm going to knock you out, blah, blah. They announced that they're going to be a tag team match next week. Why would any of these two guys want to sign that match, Garrett? Oh, yeah, here's a Tony Khan. Here's a contract for next week. You guys team together. Why would they want to do that match?
The only way it works is if they hate the team they have to fight more than they hate each other.
And who are they working?
And I don't think they hate the team that they fight, that they need
Who are they
to fight.
working? Butcher and the Blade?
I don't know. It is yeah, who are they wrestling? I didn't even really catch what the match was.
Oh, they're getting
Is
beat
that
up by Mojo and Hook.
Yeah.
As they do their bad comedy skits.
And you know, I made fun of the Okada thing. You know, the Sakuraba thing is just as bad. Like just doing catchphrases and curse words to pop this. Do they think that this AEW audience is so juvenile that all a foreign speaking person has to do is cut a curse word in English, and that's like the most amazing comedy in the world?
I'm telling you, if this was in WWE, people would be, oh, they're racist and this and that. But you know, even Shibata, the translator gimmick, how sad that is, man. You know, Okada is I don't understand. You pay all this money for this guy to get one of the best wrestlers of the current modern era, and he's doing this. And then granted, he might have wanted that. Might have wanted to be more of a character because, you know, he did in New Japan, he wrestled a hard style and he was the guy there, but he just wants to be a character in the United States. I'd be like, that's cool, but I'm not going to sign you then because if I'm going to pay you this money, I want, you know, the top wrestler for New Japan. I want to get that guy to make him a top wrestler here in AEW. I want that aura to come here in AEW. And now he's a one-note joke. Okada. Can you believe it, Garrett? Okada.
He's not even in the Owen.
He's practicing his comedy routine, you know? Everyone's doing comedy. Samoa Joe and Hook, they're doing amateur comedy. Every freaking segment ends with some kind of punchline. They got a bunch of comedians, amateur comedians, and no headliners. You know, that's their problem. You know, it's all just a joke for 2 hours, and that's what drives me nuts. They have talent. If they just tell some really good stories, focus on build these characters, explain who these are, add something to them, just being just matches. I like really good wrestling matches. You know, add a promotion based on just wrestling matches and wins and losses. All that. I like that. But when it comes to national television, people will need to get invested in the characters, and I don't think AEW does a good enough job at that, or not sometimes not even a good job at all. And that's why I think you're seeing the eroding of their audience because, you know, they've seen it. Like there's no, you know, character development of Orange Cassidy. He's still the guy that puts his hands in his pocket and is like that's all.
Here's a small thing that I had an issue with in going back to the Okada thing. So we learned last week that Tony Khan has a point man, and his point man is Christopher Daniels. So Okada and the Young Bucks they're still in charge of playing people's music and cutting people's mics.
They've already cut Christopher Daniels' balls off with that one collision moment where Roddy Strong comes in the back, goes straight up to Tony Khan, doesn't even talk to Christopher Daniels, just sits there with his hands to his side, and Roddy is telling Tony Khan he wants a match, and Tony Khan makes the match. You know, it makes no sense at all that these Young Bucks are EVPs are doing all this stuff to the show. Their guys are doing stuff to the show. When we know Tony Khan is there, the owner of the company is there, and why is he not stopping this? Or why is his, you know, assistant or acting EVP Christopher Daniels not stopping this? That's why that's such a big hole in the story. That's why people are not into the story. That's why these guys don't have that much heat. Though I will say, and the people are like, "Oh my God, John, you're just so hard on AEW. You just don't like AEW." I want AEW to succeed, and then guess what? I even said I enjoyed the Young Bucks first the Acclaim match on Dynamite this week. It probably was the best match in the show. Technically, I guess you could probably say Pac and Claudio, bell to bell. But I liked that match. It wasn't a 4-star, you know, match. It was probably about 2 3/4, 3-star, but it was fine. It was good, and it accomplished its goal. But like, you know, there's good things there. You just gotta really flush it out, and it just because it's so chaotic, because a lot of people don't know what they're doing until the week of, or sometimes until they can get there, or sometimes until the hour into the show, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. And then, it's just totally crazy. And I've heard this from multiple people that work there. So, there's people that want to out of their contract. They said, just get me out. I don't want to be here anymore because I'm not doing anything. I'm just eating catering,
This is funny because I don't know if I mentioned this in our Death of WCW, Who Killed WCW review, but I don't remember what book it was in. It may have been in Death of WCW. One of the ways that WCW cut budget and spent less money is instead of flying everybody to TV, they proactively figured out who they were going to use and only flew out those people because you just made that catering line. Can you imagine how many people do you think they used on a 3-hour Dynamite? Like at most, like 25?
And don't forget the Rampage taping. Those people are there. There's probably people waiting. There's people that show up all the time that just wait there. And I remember that was a joke early on AEW when people come in from WWE. Oh, yeah, you just sat in catering, Well, this promotion, unless you're the running joke is, and it's kind of not a joke. It's kind of what a lot of people say. Unless you're one of the people that likes to go party with the boss, you're not getting on television.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. So
someone's got to investigate that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So our number 2 topic here, we're not going to talk about it anymore. We already did it. The number 2 topic was going to be the Wyatt Sicks. We've agreed to kind of go week by week and such. By the way, your comment about 6 months, if this thing lasts 6 months, I think it's a success.
Yeah.
Like if it does last,
things last a long time in wrestling, even though it's not a success. So, like I said, we were so used to Undertaker for years, and we're okay with this supernatural stuff for a long time.
But it's also, it was one guy.
Yeah. So I just think I'm gonna give Paul Levesque a little bit of a doubt because I feel like he's been doing such a great job with everything else, but this could be something that's maybe he could hurt him a little bit creatively. But we'll see. I hope they have a plan. I know they do. I'm sure they don't do things just to throw it out there. They obviously had a plan to get this whole viral thing going for their return. So we'll see.
And we'll see if it made any dent in the ratings. At least it was unannounced, so I don't know if it would have necessarily. But I don't think that the last quarter. I'll double check, but I don't think it went up. But also, Ospreay and Swerve against Gates of Agony. That's the match.
Oh God. Yeah, man, might as well wrestle Butch and the Blade. I mean, what the hell,
Yeah.
Gates of Agony. So why is because Swerve? Oh, but someone's like, well, Swerve used to be with those guys. And
he said, I have no friends. I got rid of all my friends, and then they were part of this beatdown with MJF and Hechicero and all that. So it's kind of.
Went Will Ospreay want to team up with Daniel Garcia, the guy you ran out to go save, or Kyle Fletcher used to be in the United Empire with him, like maybe something like that.
Oh man,
oh, my goodness! Don't forget Will Ospreay's wrestling Brian Cage on Collision, so
Yeah. Okay, so actually, the Uncle Howdy angle, it looks like it did go up slightly in the last quarter. So from the Rey Mysterio match, the triple threat through the Uncle Howdy angle grew from 1.55 million to 1.63 million. So it did mean something in the end.
Yeah, it did mean something. I'm just glad he looks cool. Uncle Howdy, I didn't like his original look when he was with Bray Wyatt when they try to do all that. I didn't like the look of his character, but it looks like this is kind of more of like a cross between the Fiend and the Uncle Howdy character. I didn't like that name, Uncle Howdy. What's so scared about that? Is that scary?
It's a character of some
from that movie,
right?
Yeah, with Oh goodness gracious, it's a really good movie too. I forget. That's something phone, right? Anyways, it's a good movie.
That's your genre of film.
I know
not
it's
my
been.
genre
I
of
can't
film.
believe I forget the name. They're making a part 2 because it was such a success. So goodness gracious, but yeah. Anyways,
Okay, so Chris Jericho taught us on this week's Learning Tree segment that if you don't want to take a move that is not that might be a little too dangerous, you just go, "That's not for me, brother." Now, who what are they doing for the Uncle Howdy thing? Like, does everyone in the back who they're like 1, 2, 3, not it? Like, I'm not working with these guys. Like, I don't want to be left in a pool of blood, which makes it look like I got shot. Like, who's gonna be the ones to work with these guys?
I don't know. Like creatively, it's kind of tough because of Bray Wyatt's passing. Like I said, the fans want to root for these guys. They're going to be baby faces. So shouldn't they be wrestling heels? But what heels can they wrestle? Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. Like I don't know. Like,
I mean, in order to get this new group over,
who's
they're
that
gonna
group?
have
AOP, the Final Testament, probably.
they're gonna have to go over pretty strongly in the beginning.
Oh yeah, of course.
So,
but of who? Like that's what
know.
I'm saying. Like who's gonna? Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. That's to say, I'm sure they have a plan. I just want to see where it's going because they didn't really indicate. They tacked a bunch of different people. Chad Gable, one looked like the Big Damo from back in NXT. He was
wow.
That was which is Nikki Cross's, husband. Someone said possibly Ludwig Kaiser. Wait, Gunther was in there, but Gunther wasn't there. So
the only reports I said was that they hired extras for it, but I don't know if that means that they're like also old wrestlers in there. I just saw extras as a term that was used.
It would have been great if like Bruce Pritchard was laid out just bloody,
Brother Love.
Yeah, just Bruce Pritchard laid out bloody, a couple other, people out there in the back, producers or something like that, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Adam Pearce stringed up or something.
Yeah. All right, let's get to our major discussion on Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest at Clash of the Castle, which, I watched that show and I didn't watch any of it until I watched that match. I caught that match live and then I went backwards and watched the rest of the show after. So I caught it perfectly too. Damian Priest is coming out. He's walking down. I'm like, oh, perfect. I'm going to watch this match. Now, I'm not saying that I expected Drew McIntyre to win this match. I thought because of what they had done to his character previously at the Clash at the Castle, that it would have been a nice, probably a career moment for him to win that match. He had the situation where his wife had to go into surgery like before the show, like a couple days before the show. So I'm sure that was on his mind as well. Not like he went into this match thinking he was going to win and didn't. This is not the Davey Boy Smith situation with Shawn Michaels. So it's not that. But the way that it was being set up with this show being in Scotland, I thought pretty much from the word go, oh, great. We're going to see one of the greatest moments in WWE in 2024 happen on this show. It's going to be fantastic. And as we got closer to where we were going and the story that they were telling, then I was like, okay, I hope he wins. It's not a given. He possibly will lose this match, and I'm going to be bummed when I see him lose the match because I just don't think it's the right thing. The CM Punk angle comes out of it, which they shot really well because you couldn't really tell it was CM Punk. And really, my tell of CM Punk is that he was wearing Jordans because it's like, oh, it's Punk, because he wears them so casually, like he wears them like with no swag. It's just like his everyday like walking shoe. And I was like, oh, it's Punk. That was actually, they actually shielded him from the camera very well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, this referee running thing, fooling people, just reminded me of a lot of the run-ins that would happen under Vince McMahon's watch, where I was like, oh, again, now I will state they haven't done anything like this in a while. So it's kind of like it was a sort of a new finish in that way. But being that I've been watching WWE pretty much nonstop since 1984, like I've seen all of them, and it just made me feel like, oh, Vince, this just reminds me of Vince. So those are the kind of the opinions I had while I was watching live, and I didn't like it. I didn't like the feeling after the match. I thought, Damian Priest even winning this match valiantly as a heel, or two heels, or whatever the dynamic was. I mean, this dude looked like he hyperextended his knee in the match. That was cool to see him gut through that. So there's something there. So there's some real emotion and some real physicality there. But still, at the same time, I was like, I kind of watch wrestling for these great moments, and they're holding this one off. And what we've learned with AEW is you can hold these things off and then they just don't happen, or you get the Sting thing and it happens fantastically. And you're like, yes, like that Sting moment is still my favorite thing in wrestling in 2024, because you don't have those moments often. And I thought this would have been a pretty good one for WWE, but I know that you disagree, so I'm going to let you have the floor.
Oh, I think that I really liked the finish. I thought it was pretty ballsy too. I thought it was brilliant by the way they produced it. That's what I really liked about it. Like, I always knew that Punk was going to come and interfere, just because they were building to that. They kind of took Punk off television for a bit, but also he saw the pictures. He was in Scotland,
or what about when he told Jessica, "Can you get me a referee shirt?" And he's like, "Even the one you're wearing, I don't care." Like, brother, she's gonna take off her shirt right in front of you on camera.
But I really liked how they shot it. Like, it's right when the referee bump, all of a sudden, there's some little bit of a downtime between the referee bump stuff. There's the big kick. Now people are looking like, who's gonna come out? Where's the referee? And you just they pan to this big old wide shot, and you see someone's running down the aisle, so another referee, and when they cut to the referee sliding in, it's just from his backside. And at first, I didn't. It took me like about 5 seconds, and I realized it was Punk. I could tell by the back, not by his Jordans, but the back of his hair.
Yeah, the slick.
And also what referee wears as a long sleeves on, right? But I thought it was great. I really liked it. I think Scotland's going to be fine. I think after what we saw from last year at WrestleMania with Cody Rhodes, I think we're going to be fine.
That's WWE's excuse for everything now, right?
What, Cody Rhodes worked?
Yeah. Oh, you saw what happened with Cody, right? You just got to be patient.
Well, it did. It worked. And I mean, if this was Vince McMahon, this would have been 10 times worse, right?
Yeah. No, I agree.
This wasn't even bad. I think I liked it personally. I think when they ever come back to Scotland, and it's not going to probably be this year, probably be sometime early next year or whatever.
I mean, if they go back next year, because if you remember the Clash at the Castle, the previous one was in Wales, but I think that was 2 years ago.
I think you're right, because he beats Cody. Beats Cody at WrestleMania. So yeah, they'll be back within a year, I think. And you know what's going to happen? Drew. I think that's when Drew's going to have his big moment there. No doubt about it. And it could be against Punk.
Yeah.
In a rematch. Somehow, I'm not saying it'll happen this year, because they could splinter off and do other things, but you can always go back to it, right?
And if you're right, which the patience, if WWE is as hot as they are now, and all of those things sort of crystallize, I think you're right. It will be an even better moment. How many more triceps does Punk have? Like, right? Like, that's the risk. That's the risk is, these guys are big dudes, and they're getting hurt. They're wrestling a little bit more of a physical style than they have in the past, and so you're taking a chance to do that in the right way. But if they pull it off, and you can keep telling that story, then I agree with you. I just think it's a big risk to do it that way.
And it could not even be Punk when they return. It could be another situation that developed with Drew. Now he's in a situation to have a big moment again.
Maybe Drew and Punk can team up against the Miz again and R-Truth. Yeah.
Next.
It's just like Swerve and Ospreay together.
But you noticed, I don't know if you caught it on Raw this week, what Pat McAfee said early on, Drew's curse at the castle, or the curse at the Clash of the Castle. Like, they're already starting to make that a thing. So when they go back, whatever Drew does, he's going to overcome that curse in a big moment, probably for the championship, I'm sure.
It's like the curse of the Bambino when the Red Sox finally win the World Series.
The Armstrong curse.
I hope it doesn't last like 100 years, by the way. I hope
No. I think sometime in 2024, 2025, he'll break that curse if they. But they did like the record gate over there and everything.
Dude, those tickets were so expensive, ridiculously expensive.
What happens next time? If there's a dip in the audience, and we know maybe it kind of hurt them a little bit.
I think if they stay hot, I think that's the mulligan. But we also have to see if they stay out. I think they will. Like with the stuff that I think they have coming the end of this summer.
Yeah.
And then once you get through the end of the summer, then like Royal Rumble season is right around the corner. Then WrestleMania season. Then The Rock's going to be back unless he breaks his elbow again, like he did in the Smashing Machine. So yeah, lots of stuff coming. Oh, here's a question, and I don't even know how they're going to do it, but it's kind of related, which is Roman Reigns. When he comes back, whenever they do it, he's going to get the biggest pop, like in, of the year, maybe, right? If he comes back as a babyface, does he just keep doing the same character, or does he lean a little bit more babyface? Because I worry about them leaning him a little bit more babyface.
I'm kind of hoping it's like an Austin situation. Like he was a heel before, but he's just still being him when he's a babyface. Same thing with The Rock, right? The Rock was the same. I think Roman, he won't go to cookie cutter babyface, but I think he'll still be that cool, smooth, tribal chief character. And I think he will. I think he's smart enough to know that. He's seasoned now. He understands all that. I don't think he's going to change much. He starts high-fiving kids and
that's because and also I had this thought. I was talking to a buddy on Twitter, and we were talking about the idea of a Randy Orton Cody Rhodes feud. And you and I have talked about this before. They have that tie together from when they were in the group, and I was thinking, like, Randy Orton would have to do something really dastardly to Cody, I think, to be a real heel, because he's such a star to these fans and they love him so much.
Yeah.
And I wonder if he's over in that match against Cody, I wonder if that hurts Cody in any way.
Cody's pretty damn beloved, man. He's the ultimate babyface right now.
He's the ultimate baby. Like, he's the truest babyface we've seen in a long time.
I think they should start. It should be a series of matches. They should have a match for the title, babyface. Cody wins that, and I think you start seeing the Viper come out of Randy Orton, and it leads it to his heel turn. But right now, it seems like he's just having a blast as a babyface.
Seems like he's doing. Like, I personally, I would be fine if for Money in the Bank they were like, we don't need a title match here. Let's do Randy and Cody in the 6-man against the Bloodline, and then you create some chaos there. Maybe Solo even pins Cody to set up a title match or something. Like, I would rather see that than them try to find someone else that's not really ready to be a title match for Cody. I think we'd be fine not having the actual title match and just setting something up in a 6-man, because the 6-man will be great too.
Yeah, I think that's what I felt was going to be at the Money in the Bank. Was going to be Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, Kevin Owens
Mm-hmm.
versus the Bloodline, Soa Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Tangaloa, or the right hand man, the guy. I don't know what they're calling him, and we'll see what happens. If Hikuleo shows up soon, and
Tala Tonga.
Tala Tonga, Jacob Fatu, all those guys are showing up.
All these guys.
It's going to be Tonga crazy, man, in WWE pretty soon here.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, me too.
All right, let's for topic number 4 here, let's go through the episode 3 of Who Killed WCW, the worst one of all of them.
I watched it today because of you. I usually would watch my Curb Your Enthusiasm episode at lunchtime, Garrett, but I have a job to do.
Yeah.
And I had to eat my lunch looking at Vince Russo for a damn 45 minutes.
His voice and his face, man.
Bro.
It's rough.
Bro. He drives me insane. When he said that he was the best worker in
80%,
WCW,
yeah. Better than 80%
I was the best
of the locker room.
performer. I wanted to reach through my phone and just choke him out myself, man.
So Vince Russo has what I call the con man tell.
Mm-hmm.
And the con man tell is people expect you to lie, or people expect you to speak in half truths. But when you're serious, you tell them, if I can be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Vince, brother, you can be honest with me every time. You don't have to pick and choose when to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, just be honest all the time. And your life will probably be a little bit better. So that's first and foremost. The con man tell is Vince Russo. So here's the story as they told it. So Eric Bischoff bails out. Vince Russo is hired. The math that he does on how greatly he drew the business is hysterical, because what happens is WCW is doing some lame duck shows before he comes in, and he actually comes in a little bit early. And so when you sandbag, the couple weeks before, and then you do an actually decent rating, like, it just looks like, you brought the show out from death. So you had that. I remember, do you remember watching his first WCW show? Because, I mean, you're going to have to carry the memories of because I was really in and out with Nitro at this point.
I don't remember the exact first episode of what happened. The one I do remember was the reboot in April of 2000 when him and Eric Bischoff did the hug. Yeah. That I remember that more than I do his first show. But at the time, I mean, I was involved in wrestling, but still wasn't completely smarting out. But everything I didn't learn. That I was still learning a lot about stuff going on. So at the time, I didn't know. Like, I thought, oh, this is a coup for WCW.
Yeah,
you kept hearing about Vince Russo and the Attitude Era stuff, and I quickly learned from watching WCW 2000 that, yeah, he had some ideas, but it was Vince McMahon who and the other members of creative that made sure they use what was good and not use the bad. And all we got in WCW was a lot of bad.
Everything, which was everything without the filter.
I was still watching the show on a regular basis, and I was still hopeful because I was a WCW fan, and I wanted them to continue to succeed and get back to that point where they were hot again. And I don't remember anything I can hold on to. Like, I could tell, like, oh, that was something that was great then. There's nothing. Absolutely nothing. It was a struggle. I mean, there's some minor things. Like, there's a couple of new guys younger guys were being pushed. Like a Vampiro. I always thought he was a cool looking dude, and they were kind of pushing him, but it just never sustained. And they kept doing stuff where Sting gets caught on fire, and it's like, it was a dumpster fire is what it was.
The thing that I remember most is he was very adamant that there were people in the mid card who needed to be pushed as main eventers, and which kind of made me wonder if he knew the politics he was getting himself into, because in order to push the mid card up, you have to de-push the folks on top And when you have the Sharks of Hogan and Nash and Hall, and I wouldn't even call Ric Flair a shark, but there is a cost to, changing who Ric Flair is. So I just wonder, did he even understand the battle that he was going to get into? And not only that, but knowing that the ghost of Eric Bischoff is always going to be there just because of the guys that were still there. So, he was always going to be sort of sabotaged in that way.
I think a lot of people make this mistake when it comes to booking, is that I'm the booker, they have to do what I say. And that's not true. A good booker understands who their employees are, right? Understands their, how to communicate with them, how to feed their ego to get what you want out of them. And I think Vince Russo was, when he got hired, his head was already this big from the Attitude Era. I don't care. I know he was burnt out, whatever. But when he came in there, he was waving that dick around. He thought he was going to do this, but then he ran to some serious sharks. Hogan, Savage, Hall, Nash, and you got to get them on board first before you start doing that. And I think that's what happened. Like right away, the Hogans, the Savage, the Nash and Halls are hearing this guy like talking about, oh, I'm going to push Kidmans. I'm going to push the Vampiros. I'm going to push the Benoit, the Malenkos, the Guerreros. And they're like, hold on, man. Like that's our spot. So if he came in there and navigated those waters and got those guys, he should have probably pushed more Hogan, Nash, and Hall, but with good selling storylines to get people fans, Goldberg, get people interested in wrestling WCW again. And then when he earns their trust, now you can convince him to put over Booker T or a Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, etc.
Yeah, you have to grow what is there so that you gain trust in the people who believe that you're actually smart at what you're doing.
Yes.
You don't just go in and tear everything down and rebuild it up because you lose the people who built what was there. Hogan, Nash, and Hall probably looked at Vince and go, dude, the only reason this job exists for you is because we were there making money. We were there hot. So he's trying to do many things. Lots of things happen also. He finally puts the title on Bret Hart. Bret Hart has the injury with Goldberg, and Bret can't wrestle anymore. So lots of chaos going on. And so Vince Russo decides that because Bret can't wrestle, we need a new champion. And we're going to have a battle royal. And we're going to put over Tank Abbott as our WCW champion in this battle royal.
Yeah.
So Bill Bush, who was the guy who was in control, kind of replacing Bischoff, I guess you would say, finally, after hearing from all the Sharks that this dude's terrible, he needs to be fired, he's ruining everything, that is the moment where he's like, okay, like we have to make some changes. And Vince Russo talks about it in this doc where he's like, no, my contract says I'm head of creative. I am not part of a team. Though, like we said, Vince Russo was strongest when he was not by himself, when he was part of a team, because you have someone to basically tell you when your ideas aren't the best. And Jim Cornette, in Death of WCW, he is quoted as saying, Vince Russo remembers all the twists and turns, but he doesn't remember what led to those or what happened after. He only remembers the twists and turns. So thus, everything he books is a twist and turn without any thought or idea for what goes before or what goes after. So that was Jim Cornette's statement about Vince Russo's booking. So Russo goes home, doesn't want to be a part of this group. Kevin Sullivan is put back in charge. Now, Kevin Sullivan's name is mud to a lot of those guys, especially the ones kind of in the middle who were fine with what Russo was doing because Russo showed interest in them. In this documentary, Russo makes it seem like Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero and Conan and Shane Douglas and Dean Malenko and Perry Saturn wanted out because he was gone, when in fact they wanted out because they did not like Kevin Sullivan, especially Chris Benoit, because Kevin Sullivan tanked Chris Benoit's career during that time frame. So that was kind of funny. That I can't believe they left that in the documentary, by the way. It was like, how do you leave that part in of all the things? So Nitro ratings essentially are the same. Vince Russo does get the show changed from 3 hours to 2 hours. So just by that nature, the show should grow a little bit. Your rating should be a little higher without that third hour that was tanking the show. But attendance was down by 20%, and buy rates were cut in half. So pay-per-view buy rates, which were a big driver for them, the biggest driver for revenue, cut in half during the first Vince Russo era.
I went to a WCW Nitro in October 2000 at the Cow Palace. And
was that the San Francisco 49ers match?
I don't know. There was a mystery package match where
I think that was the San Francisco 49ers match where they had to open the boxes.
Yes, I was there for that, and Booker T won the belt back. I saw a WCW channel change, but
do you remember what else was in the boxes?
I don't remember. I think Vince Russo showed up in his Pope Mobile at that time, but there was I want to say no one there. It was a couple thousand, maybe. It was very sad.
I think there was a coal miner's glove in one of the boxes. Okay, so from Eddie Guerrero's biography, because some people were wondering, how are those guys just able to leave? How were they able to go to WWE? So Eddie Guerrero said, "We had some ammunition in our pockets that forced WCW to give us full releases. When we said we wanted out, one of the WCW road agents got pissed off and threatened to slice our throats. He was just talking out of anger, but it allowed us to go to Turner's Human Resources Department and say, look, one of your employees threatened to kill us if we left. Either take out the no-compete stipulation or we'll sue." Needless to say, Chris, Dean, Perry, and I were given full, unconditional releases. We were free agents.
What was the story with? Didn't Conan, Shane Douglas, and someone else try to go with that group? But then
there were originally 14 people who said they were going to quit if Kevin Sullivan was brought back. Then it became those 4 plus K-Dog and Shane. And then K-Dog and Shane realized that they were not necessarily wanted in WWE from their previous moments there. So do you know who that road agent was who threatened to slice their throats?
No, who was it? Was it my boy Terry Taylor?
No, he's too political for that, man.
Oh yeah. Okay.
The scuttlebutt is that it was Mike Graham.
Well, that makes sense. A lot of sense. He said some crazy stuff in the past, so I could see him. Rest in peace, Mike. But yeah.
So Vince Russo. We talked about the Vince Russo thing about what he thought about those guys leaving. Bischoff says that he realized that they were in WWE when he watched Raw at a bar and saw them show up. I'm not sure if I believe that. I had to believe that Hogan probably texted him what was going on at that moment, what was going on in the locker room. So Bischoff was brought back to be kind of an overseer of Russo. They were a team, and Russo did not see it as Bischoff was kind of the final say like Vince was. I think Bischoff thought of it that way, but he tried to be a teammate with Russo, which meant a lot of stuff that they did that probably Bischoff should have ixnayed. He didn't, including David Arquette winning the world title. Bischoff admitted that he agreed to it and was fine with it. And so the story that is told in the Nitro book is that Vince Russo was having a conversation with Tony Schiavone, and Tony Schiavone said something to the effect of, "You know what we should do?" And Russo finished his sentence to say, You're thinking what I'm thinking. Put the title on Arquette." And I don't remember. I read that book. I've been on and off reading it for a couple years, but I finished it, a couple weeks ago. I can't remember if Tony Schiavone said, yes, that's what I was thinking too. He may have said that, but basically Bischoff and Russo in this show, they agreed that was the way to go. They were brought back to do this Millionaires Club versus the New Blood story angle, which I remember the show that you were talking about where they're back together. I very much remember thinking like, who in the Millionaires Club is actually losing any of these matches? And that was my first thought. But then also like the people that were in the New Blood, like there were some old guys in the New Blood as well, but maybe they weren't pushed as hard as maybe.
I think after everyone beat up Hogan, Kidman pinned Hogan, I think, on a Nitro, and that was supposed to be a big moment. That's when Hogan clearly gigged himself on. He didn't give a shit anymore. But that April 2000 episode of Nitro where Bischoff and Russo came together, all the boys are around the ringside, and they vacate every title. I believe the playoffs were going right now. NBA playoffs were happening right now. So there was going to be preempted for a few dates, I think, of Nitro. So they used it to come back as a restart with that stupid logo. And, wow. It was a mess.
All right. So I thought Booker T was pretty good on this. He's so bad on NXT as an announcer, but I thought on this he was actually really, really good. They talked about Bash at the Beach 2000, that whole thing with Jarrett and Hogan and the work turning into a shoot, turning back into a work and turning into a shoot, and Bischoff and Hogan against Russo. They're all supposed to be working together, and they're disagreeing, and Hogan sues WCW because he had creative control and all of this craziness.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, Vince Russo saying he was better than 80% in the locker room. And then the cherry on top is Vince Russo puts the title on himself. He is in a match with who's he in the? He's in the match with Booker T.
I think it was like a War Games match or something like that.
Yeah, it was like a triple cage match, or there's like multiple cages, and Goldberg spears him through the cage door, which makes Vince Russo the world champion because he escaped the cage thanks to Goldberg spearing him. And so I think this was in one of the books where Goldberg said, thankfully he was wearing the helmet, because if his head hits that rail without the helmet and he's already got the concussion, like something really bad could happen. I'm not saying the concussion wasn't a bad thing, but Russo was shaken up and had concussions and had to leave again. But ultimately, my main takeaway from this time frame is, if anybody ever says Triple H's booking or Tony Khan's booking is like WCW 2000, just tell them to F off, because
I say that. I say that.
Because reading Death of WCW, reading Nitro, there's no way. The level of incompetence and miscommunication and studio or production gaffes.
Sounds like AEW right now.
There's no way. It's not even close. And, because everyone makes mistakes on their television, but it is like so far worse than anything else that our eyeballs watch today. Now, the only thing that, like I said, that may get close is that Bray Wyatt and Seth Rollins thing, the Fiend and Seth Rollins thing that happened. Like that was like kind of mind boggling, pretty close. But everything is so much more professional. The wrestlers are so much more professional. Maybe they are frustrated just the same, but they're getting paid well in most cases, so hopefully that helps. But yeah, that was my main takeaway, is that I know it's kind of easy to throw that comparison around, but reading through that book all over again, and I read through the Russo era of Death of WCW. The last 2 days, I was just laying in bed, keeping my wife going like, "Gosh, why is your phone still on?" For hours and hours, because I just wanted to do it for this show. And yeah, there's nothing close that we've seen. Wrestling is so much better in every aspect to that WCW 2000 time frame. Now WWF they were on fire.
Yeah.
And, so that you had the total like opposite of one company's doing everything wrong and the other company's doing everything right.
Yeah. WWE in 2000 was a pretty awesome year, I thought.
That might have been their best year creatively, actually.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that year. I went back. I think I watched a lot of that time, and it was fantastic. And but yeah, when I say WWE 2000, because I see some of not the zaniness of Vince Russo's booking in AEW. I just see a lot of the start and stop and things not making sense, and some of the decisions being made that.
Okay, but they have never booked a 64-person world title tournament where Medusa loses like 3 times in the tournament. Of course.
But they did have an Anarchy in the Arena match where someone got lit on fire and came back and won the match. So, I mean,
yeah, but yeah, I mean, I don't like that wrestling.
They did have an orange in the pool match. They did have,
but that stuff like that. Is silly. It is not my style. But they try and make it as from a production standpoint. They try to make it good, like Jack Perry getting set on fire. It's not like someone lit the flame and his shoelaces caught on fire and that was it, and they had to pretend like his whole body was on fire. Like, they don't, like, sometimes they may go a little overboard with that because it's dangerous as well. But again, it's like WCW 2000 was like the Shockmaster every day. Is like the Truman Show if you were through the eyes of the Shockmaster. Like, everything is just so bad and nobody's learning, nobody's trying to improve. There are guys who are getting paid very well. Like Kevin Nash was like, I don't know if he said this on air, if this was in one of the books, but he's like, I'm the smartest guy in wrestling because I booked my own retirement. And so I just get paid and I don't have to show up. Like, he's the booker. Like that. He literally said that.
I like my favorite Kevin Nash politic story was when Booker T won the title at Bash the Beach or whatever the hell that was in WCW 2000. And they quickly put the belt on Kevin Nash because he convinced Vince Russo that to get Booker T over, he has to beat a guy like him for the title. So like in like a month later, Booker T beats like in September, I think it was. When
there's tons of stuff with Sid Vicious.
Sid.
Like there's the Scott Steiner thing where Steiner's basically telling the audience, cutting a promo saying like, I know you guys want to watch Steve Austin and no one's watching us. And, then he's doing the thing where he's calling out Kimberly Page and DDP, and then DDP calls him out on it. Then he just like almost kills DDP and pulls his eyeball out. Like, there's like so much stuff like that going on.
Went off on Ric Flair for no reason in a promo. Yeah.
It's craziness.
It was wild.
All right, so last episode will be next week, and then we will be done with this
Thank
series.
Goodness.
I'm thankful that we're going to be done because as much as I get a kick out of doing the research and such, I just like the Dark Side is so well done at giving kind of both sides and doing the wink, wink, nod, nod with the, this is the wrestling version of the story. And then you got Jim Cornette and Dave Meltzer and people like that to kind of give you the real version of the story. They don't have that on this. So it's just a bunch of liars. And I'm just like, man, this is not a documentary. This is like a mockumentary for a lot of it. So, all right.
Brad Siegel, man, he just seems like a snake in the grass, huh? I would not get along with that guy. I don't think.
So what I'm hoping is that Stu Snyder is on the next episode because Stu Snyder worked with Brad Siegel at Turner and then also worked for Vince McMahon. And Dave Meltzer tells the story that when people were saying that Fusion Media was getting the company, that he was hearing from people that I can't say Stu Snyder. This is like Wheeler Yuta all over again. Remember, I couldn't say his name forever. So, but Stu Snyder supposedly was telling everyone, "There's no way, like they're not selling it to them. You know, it's just not happening." And so, I've been in contact with one Stu Snyder to try and get him on Wrestling Observer Radio. So we'll see if it happens. In the Nitro book, Guy Evans basically says that Stu Snyder was one of the harder interviews, and so there's the theory is that he and Siegel had this relationship, and Siegel wanted WCW TV off the air, off of Turner so much that he was trying to find a way to sell it to WWE, because if he would have sold it to Fusion, part of that deal was that even if the WCW stuff failed, they would still get the television, and they could put another show on there. So what he wanted was to cancel the television, and by canceling the television, he knew the only people that who could make use of WCW at that point was WWF, because they didn't need the time slot. So, or they couldn't even use the time slot because of their deal with Viacom, I guess. So, all right. Last episode will be next week, and then we'll be done. And let's just end with this, which is NXT. I didn't understand the Battle Royal. Javon Evans wins the Battle Royal. Then somehow Ethan Page, is it Simone Johnson? She grew up in this wrestling business. She shouldn't be getting worked by these wrestlers and making her decisions. Ethan Page finagles his way into a match with Javon Evans. So we've already seen Javon Evans lose once to Sean Spears last week, which I didn't think was great. And Ethan Page beats Javon Evans in this second match. Now, does he get the shot? Is it going to be a three-way? What did he actually win? I didn't understand what he was fighting for.
I actually only was able to end up watching the YouTube version of it. So I did see the full Battle Royal, and I saw like 6 minutes of the singles match between Ethan Page and Javon. I think it's going to be a three-way, because I think at Heatwave, which is the next, is that a PLE or is that just a special on USA?
I think it's the
PLE. I think it's PLE.
I think it is like that. When is Money in the Bank?
July 6th. So I think it's July 7th.
Is it it's that same weekend? I think, right?
Yeah. So I think it's a PLE. It has to be the Saturday, I'm guessing. But anyways, I think it's going to end up being a three-way, because Trick Williams, Javon Evans match, that's a pretty big risk. I mean, Javon Evans is very exciting. He has, we talked about last week, he has a connection. It's the cool young kid. Trick.
He even made that little backstage thing with the person who was taping up his ribs entertaining.
Yeah. He's a ton of potential in that guy. I just think it's a big risk, Trick and him. I think that's why they want Ethan Page to be put in there, because he's going to be the glue of that match. And I just hope they don't take the belt out Trick with some kind of shenanigans. I hope not. I think Trick should just be a champion coming into CW, which I think they already announced like a date, right?
I think you're right, though. You could recreate the chase to that show with Trick if you wanted to, if they thought that was, good for, because it's fine either way. Like if he loses and then he goes and wins it back, like you get that moment again in this new audience. So I would be fine with that too. But I agree. He seems like he's the star of that show, and they did a .26 on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
We'll see what Dynamite does. It's not a head-to-head. It's not an apples to apples, but that
no
will
playoffs. So we'll see what they do.
That would be a little bit of a bummer for AEW, I think, if NXT does a better number. But I think it's in play. We'll see what happens.
There's some real momentum with NXT. I think people are intrigued by this TNA connection that they're doing. This little
It
bit
just
of a
makes it.
crossover.
It just makes it interesting.
Yeah,
You know, it like so we all love New Japan. We understand the history of CMLL, but to this WWE audience, TNA with NXT is probably the better match than bringing over some young Japanese wrestlers or some young Mexican wrestlers. And plus, you know, with TNA so far, other than Ethan Page, WWE's winning all the matches. But I
I'm
just
sure
think it's
TNA is going to have their moment in the sun.
we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see.
they won on their show. They beat an NXT star on their show, right? Tatum Paxley lost to Jordan Grace.
I mean, she's the odds in that match were not close, I'm sure. But yeah, like I think to NXT audience, TNA is the better matchup. Like AEW and New Japan is a great connection. It's a natural connection. I'm not sure the CMLL stuff is working out as well as they want, but like TNA and NXT is a great match actually, and it just creates intrigue. But the other thing that I was going to say, they have young characters who are very interesting and over. Trick being one of them. We talked about the women's division last week. I've been a Lola fan since before she was Lola. I really, really like her. And there's something there for sure. The Roxanne Perez stuff is great too, and her new character, which I don't always like her heel promos, but she's got the attitude piece of it down. Like I thought that the triple threat tag match on NXT in all of its NXT-ness was actually more intriguing than the one that was at Clash of the Castle with all of the bigger stars. I just, not that it was a better match. I just thought it was
that one.
more interesting. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, stuff is happening though. I don't want to see. I also didn't like the way Evans lost the match. Like his ribs are hurt, obviously.
Yeah.
He takes
That's
that.
his,
He takes that Ethan's whatever
Razor's
they call
Edge.
it, the Razor's Edge.
Yeah.
And the Razor's Edge, the way that he falls, it probably should hurt his lower back. But instead of him just that's like the final move and he's out because he's so goddamn athletic, he just bounces and he's like, and that's how he loses. I'm like, I don't know. Let's at least cheat to get the guy out. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think the out is his ribs. Obviously, that's his out, and that's his. So I think it's going to end up being a triple threat at the Heat Wave, and I think it's probably the smarter move for the better match. For you can hide Trick's weaknesses, and
you couldn't come back with Ethan Page and Trick again. Like you already
unless
did
it was some like major stip or something. But yeah, I think but he's doing good. I like Ethan Page. What I've seen so far, I think. I think he's going to do well here in WWE. So, and then we'll see who comes. I think Joe Hendry's going to be coming back. I don't really understand the whole deal, like the longevity of it, but whatever. It's popular right now. Be cool to see Josh Alexander. It'd be cool to see Hammerstone, and all those guys. So, and,
it was cool seeing Frankie Kazarian in that battle royal.
Very cool. And of course, and a lot of people were bitching about Joe Hendry getting knocked out early. Like there's all this venom on WWE. See, they're trying to kill TNA. That's saw a lot of that, but it makes total sense if you think about it. Joe Hendry's an outsider. He comes in singing, cocky, arrogant. The whole NXT locker room's looking at this guy like, what the hell? So you're coming to our house singing the song, being cocky. He gets in the ring. The NXT people attack him, but the guy who eliminated him is the guy he's feuding with in TNA. And that is Frankie Kazarian, who is a heel.
Yeah.
Which I thought he was a babyface. And I didn't know that until
the thing I didn't like about that battle royal, too many people in that battle royal were surprised that the other person wanted to throw them out.
Yeah.
And there was surprised.
And like a lot of battle royals in this day and age last 5-6 years, even longer. There was a moment where a lot of people were sitting and watching. Yeah. I hate that. There was a moment that you see the veteran Frank Kazarian. There's a moment where it's a spot over by I think it was when the the Garza brothers getting eliminated and all that stuff.
Mhm.
There's a moment where people are sitting and watching, and I saw Frankie in the background. He just goes grab someone.
Mhm.
You know, like these guys got to, okay, it's not my spot now. I got to sit and watch. No, like just grab someone, hold them against the ropes like you're trying to throw them out. Like it's all you got to do. Look like you're doing something. Don't just sit there and just be a spectator. You know?
Yeah. All right. That is it from here. Next week, we will have our Forbidden Door preview. And we'll talk about, I'm assuming we're going to be talking about this Wyatt Sicks thing it's going to be very polarizing. So we'll have lots to talk about that. We'll talk about the last episode of Who Killed WCW and whatever else happens in wrestling. The Owen Cup is going on. I think we're getting Willow and Statlander pretty soon, which should be pretty good.
Shingo Takagi. That's at the Forbidden Door, right?
I think that's at the pay-per-view. Shingo and Bryan Danielson. So
Yeah.
So we
Wild
will.
Card.
Oh yeah, do you have a prediction?
I don't know. Hangman Page maybe or something.
There's Hangman. Could be Mox. Could be.
No, Mox is wrestling Naito that show. Oh, it could be later on.
But yeah, because Owen is just to kind of get to Wembley.
The wild card would be like, oh, we're just waiting for Forbidden Door to end so we can put someone in the tournament. That's the wild card.
It might be.
When's Ricochet coming in? If he comes in,
maybe. Well, from what I understand, he's still got time left on his WWE deal, so I don't think it would be him. But who knows? Maybe it's sooner than later. But yeah, from
Volador.
What I have heard, who
Volador.
Well,
who's gonna wrestle Jeff Jarrett in a match? That's what we gotta think of. Who would that be?
I don't know, man. When I love Jeff Jarrett, but him being in that tournament and no Okada, no MJF, yeah, that there's a flaw in that. So
yeah.
All right, we'll be back next week. Thanks to everyone who checked in with us live. Our buddy Richard Becerra was in there for at least for a little while, and he's in I think he's in San Antonio, so I don't know what time it is there right now, but and everyone else who was checking in with us, like, you know, we'll try and do this once a month at least to start, and then if we can do it more often, we will definitely do it more often. But yeah, we'll be back next week. For John LaRocca, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.